Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bittner and special guest Ash Paulson from Game On to discuss all the stages that we know are coming to the 3DS version of Super Smash Bros. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, we've talked about a lot of the various aspects of Super Smash Bros. But one thing we haven't really talked about in depth, at least, all together, are the stages coming to the 3DS version of Smash Bros. So I figured we'd take another look at them, especially after our analysis of all the stages. We covered a lot of the finer details, and just give our overall take on how we think these levels are going to play. So starting off, we have Animal Crossing Tortimer Island. And this stage is kind of unique in that it'll change from match to match, and that different elements will be rearranged. Like the pool of water, the trees, and even the dock where Kappa will pull up in his boat will switch from the left to right side. So yeah, let's go start off with you, Ash. What do you think about this level?
I think it looks bright and fun and cheery. I do like that the things are, the elements are rearranged each time you play it. I think it kind of, gives it a sense of, well, this isn't just one stage, but it could be anything.
Right.
And each time you play it, and I have to confess, I didn't play a lot of Animal Crossing New Leaf, so I'm not going with any sort of reference here, but it looks like a fun stage and fairly small. It seems like it'll be fairly compact, and you've got your stage hazards with the sharks in the water, and it seems like a fairly small, basic stage, but it can be remixed with a lot of elements to make it a little less basic.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case here. I mean, I think it's interesting that they chose this for the 3DS version because it is very unique to New Leaf, and also it has a very different feel than Smashville and Brawl and the city and town for the Wii U version, which is all based on towns and whatnot. So having sort of more of a sea resort gives it something a little different, and kind of in a way reminds me of the old pirate ship Wind Waker stage, just because of the whole sea elements and whatnot, being able to swim and just having different hazards pop up that way. But it's small, cheery. I don't know how much I'll end up playing it, but I guess I'll have to just get a feel for it first.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about the stage, it's as far as we can tell, like really basically flat. I don't think we've seen any direct interaction with the trees using them as platforms, and yeah, so it seems to be, aside from like a slight hill in the middle, it's going to be a pretty flat stage. It actually is pretty similar to the original Smashville, which is also a flat stage. But this time, you do have the water there, and that presents the hazards of sharks, which I'm wondering how they're going to work exactly. Like, are they just going to like scare you back to shore, or will they actually grab you and like drag you off, or just eat you, kind of like the fish from Summit, or Balloon Fight even?
That's kind of what I was thinking. I figure the sharks act like the fish from Summit, and I also find myself wondering how swimming works in this game anyway. Like if it's going to be the same as it worked in Brawl, or if it'll be changed up a little. I'm just wondering if water itself is going to be a hazard, or if we're mainly going to have to worry about what's in the water.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because although I liked I liked that they added swimming to Brawl, I can't say I loved how they handled it. I don't know if I have any better ideas, but it did. Once you fell in, you were basically helpless. You just kind of floated there until you jumped out.
I mean, I never had any real problems with the swimming. I've never felt like, I should be able to dive or whatnot. It was just sort of nice to not have instant death if you fell into the water, which is the case here. So even though there's a hazard in the form of the shark, it does make you think like, okay, I can't like knock him off the edge, so I have to get him off the sides in some way. Right. So it does change up the strategy a bit when it comes to the stage itself.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely an interesting stage. Only other thing I wonder is if the time of day might change too, like it does in New Leaf. We haven't seen any indication of that, because the time of day does change at the other Animal Crossing stages. So I'd be kind of surprised if it doesn't. Although it could just be that maybe they are going for the full tropical theme and just want to leave it, daylight all the time.
I'd kind of be surprised if it doesn't too. Animal Crossing stages seem like they're kind of perfect for that. So I feel like maybe we will see the time of day change in this stage. One other thing I was going to say about it was that I'm happy to see Animal Crossing get a stage that's not quite so basic, just because. In Brawl, Smashville, Andre, you and I have talked about this quite a few times. I'm not really a big fan of the Final Destination S stages, which are just flat and featureless. I mean, they're fun sometimes, but I like stages that really, change it up and challenge you with hazards and platforms. And I'm happy to see Animal Crossing get more of a relatively, it's still pretty basic, but it's definitely less featureless than Smashville, and from the new the City Folk stage as well. It looks like.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, because although I liked Smashville and presumably the new City and Village or whatever it's called, City and Town. Can't remember.
Right.
The new Animal Crossing stage. The design itself, is pretty dull, actually. Again, I do like playing on them, but just looking at it, it's not that great visually.
Right.
And it just, and I remember too, when they were announcing stages in Brawl, like, so many of them seem similar from just from like a purely platform standpoint. I remember there was an image floating around that just drew their stages in the most basic form, and they all look super similar. Then they finally ended up announcing some more that did look, that did change things up. But yeah, so I agree with you. It's nice to see a different Animal Crossing stage. All right, now next up we have Balloon Fight, and this one's actually follows takes a page from the Animal Crossing stages book, in that it actually changes up match to match too, where you'll get different platforms. And the spinners or flippers are in different locations in each match too. And of course, the main unique element of this stage is the fact that you can cross, over the screen barrier and you'll instantly warp to the other side, just like in Balloon Fight or a bunch of other classic, games of that era. So I think the stage is totally cool, if only for that, screen warping mechanic, because it's something we haven't seen in a Smash Brothers game before. I think it'll make KOing people really interesting in this game, assuming that KOs don't count off screen, and you can only do it by, shooting them above the top of the screen or into the water below.
And it seems like we'll have off-screen KOs here. I'm not totally sure about that, but I don't know how excited I actually am about this stage, because I wasn't really a big fan of a lot of the stages in Brawl, like the classic Donkey Kong stage, which from an aesthetic standpoint, I think it's super cool.
Right.
I can't remember what it's called, like 78M, or I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, 78,
exactly.
or 75M, I think, 75 meters.
Yeah. I think they look really cool, but to me, it's just a pain in the ass to actually play on, and that's what I worry that this will be like with the spinners. And it just seems like it's going to be one of the stages where you're basically flying around the stage all the time because you're getting hit by spinners. I'm sure the clouds shoot off little sparks like they do in Balloon Fight.
Yeah, we actually see that in the direct even.
Oh, did we? Okay, cool. Yeah. I didn't remember that, but yeah. So I don't know. Just because of my experiences with 75M, I'm not so sure how I feel about this stage, but it seems like it's fairly small too, so it doesn't seem like it's going to be very... Like, this one almost seems like it goes too far the other way with what I said about the Animal Crossing stage, where it's going to be super chaotic and hard to really get any serious fighting done on, but, that's just speculation, and I do love the aesthetic of it. Anything 8-bit you put in front of me, I'm going to love.
So, yeah, that's an interesting comparison you made to 75 meter, because, yeah, it does share that NES visual style, but the stage is basically the complete opposite, in that stage is big and often boring. This stage is small and has a lot of things happening.
That's true, but I mean, this kind of also reminds me of the Mario Brothers stage, which also is kind of I don't know, it's so many hazards. Maybe there might be a few less hazards on this, but it does remind me of the Mario Brothers stage.
I kind of like that stage just for mixing it up every once in a while, but it was a stage I don't think anyone ever played on seriously, because you couldn't. It came down just to throwing enemies, basically, and what's interesting about that stage is that one also had a screen sharing mechanic, or the going off screen, but only for the enemies. If you tried going off screen yourself, you would just die.
I mean, I'm sort of along the lines of Ash, where I never really got into the classic Donkey Kong stage or the Mario Brothers stage, just because with Mario Brothers the sides were just too small. Like, it was so easy to just get killed if you got to the sides in that stage, and the Donkey Kong stage there's just too much hazards. But looking at Balloon Fight, I'm actually get a better feeling from for this than either of those stages. I think it's simple enough that you can actually have a good fight on. I love the mechanic of the being wrapped around, and I am curious to see if smashes will count if you send them to the side.
Right.
I have a feeling they won't, or at least I hope they won't, because I think it would be kind of funny to hit somebody and have them go flying across repeatedly.
Multiple times. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Multiple times just because they get hurt so bad. And they could still be a strategy, because if you can hit them at an angle and smash them to the side, and they hit a flipper and then go down into the water, it could still be very interesting how they how that whole works. So you have to sort of be fully aware of the whole stage.
Right.
So I really do like that aspect of it. I think the key thing for me is how closed in it feels. The other thing I really did not like about the Mario Brothers stage was that you couldn't pass through the floors.
Right.
So you would bounce up and down. So it was very claustrophobic. And as long as these platforms don't have that, which I don't believe they do based on the direct footage.
Yeah, I don't think they do either.
Won't have that same feeling, and I think it will actually be probably the most fun classic 8-bit stage that we've ever had.
Yeah, well, there's not a ton of competition there.
You know, I had actually kind of forgotten that Sakurai already confirmed that the stage does loop. So now that I remember that he confirmed that, I definitely have higher hopes for the stage than I did the other 8-bit stages.
Well, yeah, I mean, we knew it looped, but the question is, will KOs do that count as that too? Like, I could see it being, if you knock someone off screen, it counts as a KO, but if you walk across yourself, that's fine. I mean, I don't know if they make that distinction, but it's a possibility.
That seems like a weird distinction to make, though, because, I don't know, that just seems to, conceptually, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, you know, so you can walk off the side, you can't be KO'd into the side? I don't know.
The only reason I would think that, perhaps, is, like, in the original Smash Brothers, if you jump too high off the screen, you could KO yourself.
True.
Whereas in later games, I'm pretty sure that was basically impossible. You can only KO yourself, you can only get KO'd off the top of the screen by being knocked off of it. So, I mean, I don't think it is something they do either, but it is something they could do.
If that's not the case, and the stage does really loop in every condition, then it may end up being a lot like Shadow Moses Island in Brawl, where the only, besides the water, of course, in this stage, but the easiest way to KO someone is by smashing them up.
Right, yeah, good point, exactly. Yeah, except in that stage you could destroy the walls eventually. But
right,
yeah.
And I was okay with that. I actually kind of enjoyed that, having to smash them up to KO them. It kind of added a fun strategic element. So if that's what this ends up being like, then this could be a fun stage.
Yeah, it definitely felt different, and this one will definitely feel different, it looks like. So,
yeah.
All right, moving on, we got Find Me, of course, based on the Street Pass game of the same name. And this one appears to be a pretty basic arena, at least on the face of it, where you have just 2 platforms. And what's cool, though, is they actually match the depiction of this level on the world map in Find Me, which is a really neat little detail. Now, the thing I'm wondering with the stage, though, is how that caged me is going to factor into this. Now, we already know, you've got the boss there from that game that'll appear as a stage hazard, presumably in the same fashion as a Yellow Devil on the Mega Man stage, so a boss character. But I wonder how that me is going to factor into all this, because, you free them in the original game, and in one screenshot, we can even see the me is missing from that cage, which strongly suggests you might be able to free them. In my analysis, I theorized maybe they'd cast a magic spell, for instance, like in the Find Me game, depending on their shirt color, which might be pulled direct from your own me database on your 3DS. Or maybe you just free them when you beat the boss.
I kind of agree with you, Andre. I think what you said, definitely, they both seem like very obvious possibilities, and in a good way. I'm a huge Street Pass fan, so when this stage was announced, I was super happy. It would make too little sense not to have the me in the cage based on the me's on your own system. So that seems like it's a given. And in terms of the screenshot we do see where the me is not in the cage, yeah, maybe he goes off and comes back with a little army even to cast spells, or maybe he just casts a spell based on his shirt color and runs off. But either way, I think both of those things seem like very likely possibilities, just given the theme of the stage.
I think you probably had the closest idea when you said that you get rewarded with some sort of effect from one of the Mii's once you beat the boss.
Right.
Because it'd be kind of lame if every boss has the same sort of effect. So we already know the Yellow Devil causes a huge explosion that basically acts as a smart bomb and just encompasses everybody. If every boss does the same thing, that sort of loses some of the panache for me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
To have the Mii come out and based on its shirt color perform a different spell, whether it's healing you or doing another some sort of area of attack using their magic, that'd be really cool, and I think really change things up, because especially since in the because it's 3DS and everybody will have their own system while playing. Like, I believe one of the effects that you could have, like with black and white, is darkening the screen or lighting the screen.
Oh yeah.
So they can even do that sort of thing where everything looks fine for you, but if a black shirted me comes out, they darken the stage, and you can still see things, but it's a lot harder to see like beyond like the actual stage platforms.
Right.
And likewise for the white one, where it's just a little too bright for you. So they really could play with that whole aspect.
I agree with all of that. I think it'd be cool if the me, is a different type of reward. The only problem with that is in that one screenshot where the me's missing, you can see the boss there too. So maybe bosses reappear perhaps, and like the me's already been freed once. I don't know though. I'm not entirely sure how those two are tied together. Like, maybe just hit the cage a bunch of times and free the me,
That could be too.
I'm kind of wondering if the Dark Emperor here is the boss. I wonder if he, because anyone who's played a lot of Street Pass will know that he has a penchant for using level down gas on your characters. So I'm wondering if he'll do that here, where, if you're hit with whatever that attack, that you'll have increased knockback, and you'll do less knockback or damage yourself. Like, I wonder if maybe there will be a hazard there in relation to actually weakening your own abilities.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, there's actually a lot they could do with both his abilities and the Mii's potentially to really make the stage a lot more interesting than it seems on the face of it.
The stage needs it just because it is very basic otherwise.
Exactly. And speaking of which, we have the Fire Emblem Arena Ferox, which actually starts off as a very uneventful stage, just like a flat arena as far as we can tell. But after that, it seems like it'll change throughout the match. Kind of similar to, I guess, the Fire Emblem stage even from Brawl, but it's more like the Pokemon Stadium stages where platforms emerge from the ground and create different types of arenas. And in this case, there can be 4 other additional forms on top of the base one that we know of so far. It's possible there's even more beyond that. And they all look pretty different. You've got one with statues holding platforms. You've got another with a machine that has platforms moving on it as well. So it looks like this might be the Pokemon Stadium of this game, basically. Especially because we already have a Pokemon Stadium, or a Pokemon Arena that doesn't have, that's not random like this. So I think this arena should be cool. Pokemon Stadiums are usually pretty fun to play around with, and because of their random elements. And this one I think will be interesting because of that.
I agree with you that it obviously reminds me of Pokemon Stadium 2, and with the differing platforms and stage mechanics, it seems definitely more like Pokemon Stadium 2 than the Fire Emblem stage from Brawl, because it doesn't seem like the actual arena shifts. It seems like it's all based on this stage. So I think that's definitely the comparison there, and it looks fun. I'm sure a lot of people will be appalled, but I didn't actually play Fire Emblem Awakening, and yes, I know what I'm missing out on, but I didn't actually play it, so I don't really have any reference in terms of how this stage appears in Awakening. But yeah, I think it seems like this game's Pokemon Stadium 2, and I'm fairly certain it'll have killer music because Fire Emblem has awesome music. So there's that too.
You're really not missing anything by not playing. Not the game itself. You definitely play the game at some point. But as far as the arena, you're not missing anything from the game itself because it really was just a flat plane that. Basically arena.
Well, I know it appears in the Street Pass, the 3DS puzzle swap thing.
Yeah, so it is all just embellished, but that, even given that, Pokemon Stadiums, the stadium stages in both Melee and Brawl, were some of my favorite in the game. I do, as Andre said, I love the random elements for it. It just kept it fresh. It was sort of like Final Destination and just a flat plane, but it also mixed things up, and that's what I'm seeing here. And I just love the little details that this stage is providing. Like, every platform in there is like, when we were doing the analysis, I was helping out specifically with this stage, and I noticed how every platform in this stage is held up in some way in the background or foreground, and it's just cool to see that kind of detail. Otherwise it just looks like to be the successor to Pokemon Stadium, and I don't know, it's probably one of my favorites that I've seen so far.
And it makes a lot of sense with, the potential of Pokemon Stadium not returning. Alright, moving on, we got Kid Icarus Reset Bomb Forest. And I might just take back what I just said, but I think this actually might be one of the most interesting stages in the game. In that it appears as if it may have, or in fact it definitely appears it has 2 forms. The first one is the more basic one, in which you have a variety of platforms, and actually in a pretty novel layout, really. You have 2 on the side and a whole bunch above. And then you have the fact that there are these reset bombs going off in the background, kind of, like in the stage of Kid Icarus Uprising that this is based on. But it appears that once a bomb goes off, the arena completely changes to one that looks like a side-scrolling arena with a completely different layout that actually takes place, as this bomb is going off. And the bomb is called a reset bomb because it causes the environment to return to nature. And you can see that in this new environment, there's like trees growing, in different ways. It just looks completely different from this normal stage. So I think this one looks really novel, and I'm curious to see how it actually ends up playing, with it changing like this.
It's definitely one of the stages I'm most excited about. Anyone who I've talked to about Kid Icarus Uprising, I've made no secret about my undying love for that game. That game was incredible, I thought, and I just loved it to death. And it was very epic. The whole thing was very epic, and this stage seems like it's going to have that same epic feel with the war going on in the background and the reset bombs going off. And I like that the stage completely changes after the reset bomb does go off. And, not to sound like a broken record, but I'm almost certain that the 2 music tracks on this stage will be awesome as well. Kid Icarus Uprising had awesome music, and this is definitely maybe the stage I'm most excited to learn more about, and even to play at E3. Like, this is a stage where I've seen the screenshots from, like, man, I really want to know how this works. I really want to play this. It looks so promising. I'm super excited about it. I can't really say much beyond that.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the question: is how will this work exactly? I mean, we presumably know how it gets to the second stage. But once you get there, now to us in the analysis, it looked like it's a side-scrolling portion because the camera moves slowly to the side. But I've seen some people online comment that just may be how the camera, like that just might be how the camera was being directed in that scene, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Could be paused.
Yeah, exactly. And it may not actually be scrolling. So I don't know. And then there's the fact of how does it get back to the original form? Do they fire another reset bomb to unreset the reset bomb?
Yeah.
Hard to say, really. I mean, the second half is definitely the more mysterious of the two. But before I get into that part, you were talking about the layout of the platform as being kind of novel, and I just had a thought. Is like, it kind of the platform layout kind of reminds me of Hyrule Castle from the original Smash Brothers.
Oh, that's a good one.
It does.
Yeah, it's definitely similar.
Not exactly the same, of course, but we haven't seen really a layout like that in a little bit, but I kind of like it. Otherwise, the reset bomb part, I mean, it's hard to say whether it actually moves or not. We have not seen enough evidence, unfortunately. They always change like the view that you get in the sea of it, so we haven't gotten like a clear view.
Right.
But it definitely seems to be way more hazardous than the first part, just because we have that one enemy, which I can't remember for the life of me, that goes across the bottom with spikes, and then you have that other one that's supposed to be even deadlier than the Super Chimera from Earthbound, as far as how much damage he gives out. So, I mean, it seems like once the reset bomb part happens, there's some major danger just in every place.
Yep, certainly seems that way. Moving on, we got Mario Kart 7's Rainbow Road. And this one's a traveling stage, very much in the same vein as Mario Sunshine, where you ride a platform from point to point in the level, stop down at certain points, and, depending on where you end up, there's different platform layouts and different hazards. Although it seems like there will be one hazard that's a constant, and that's the Shy Guys that race throughout the course. Now, I have some thoughts about this one, but I want to open up with your guys's.
Well, to me, it seems like a pretty fun mix of Brawl's Port Town Aerodive from F-Zero and Brawl's Mario Kart stage, just the Mario Circuit.
Yeah, that actually is a better comparison, but it is more like F-Zero.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's kind of like a Mario Kart version of the Port Town Aerodive stage. Plus, with the element of the Shy Guys driving, from the background onto the track from the Mario Kart stage in Brawl. So it seems like a kind of a fun mixing of those elements. I thought the Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 7 was okay. It wasn't one of my favorites, but I think as a Brawl stage it could work. I mean, the fact that it takes place in space, like the Wii one, it makes for some good spectacle. And I do like traveling stages because they're always fun to look at, and the hazards change from location to location, and it just seems like it's going to be a solid stage, and not necessarily too surprising, but just a fun solid stage that seems like to me it'll be kind of a mainstay in terms of being reliably fun and interesting.
As I've said many times before, by this point I have not played much of Mario Kart 7, but based on its appearance, it does seem like the best fit for a Smash Brothers stage, just because it has the most going on with the different, you're in this pipe area, you're on the moon at some point, you got regular parts of the track where there's holes in it, so it has enough different hazards that it makes sense for it to be a traveling stage. If it was a traveling stage and every part you stopped on was the same exact thing, then it'd be kind of boring. But in this way, I think we actually are able to get a bit more variety in there. And I'm pretty much the same with Ash. I mean, it's not like super exciting for me, but I think it's going to be just a really reliable stage to have fun with your friends.
I have elements of those thoughts here. So here's the thing. On the face of it, I think this level looks kind of dull. I wasn't a huge fan of Rainbow Road and Mario Kart 7. And traveling stages don't appeal to me that much, like just like in principle. But with all that being said, I don't like Mario Sunshine. I didn't like the, Al Delfino, essentially. And yet, that level is one of my favorite levels in Smash Brothers Brawl. It's a traveling stage, you're in a Mario Sunshine level, and I loved it. So I think that alone might make this more interesting for me. I might end up liking this stage a lot. Although I will say, Ash mentioned that, in traveling stages you have some interesting things to look at. And I'm looking at these pictures, and I don't think they'll really be the case here that often. Like, you just have a star field in the background. I guess you'll touch down on the moon at some point, and that might be kind of cool. But I don't know. This one looks kind of visually dull, though.
That's a fair thought. I mean, I don't know. I like the screenshots where you're going through the tube, which is part of the course, and the planets in the background, and Yeah, I don't know. It reminds me, of course, a lot of Mario Galaxy, which is what they were going for, but I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't know if it'll look more visually impressive than, say, Port Town Aerodrive, and I'm with you, Andre. I really like Delfino Isle, so I love that stage, and I loved how bright and all the colors popped. Like, I really like that stage, and I don't think that this stage will be as interesting as that, just based on what you said. I mean, just the background's a little less interesting by default, but I don't know. It still seems like it has potential to be a good-looking stage, especially with the 3D on. I feel like this is one of the stages that could benefit the most from having the 3D slider on.
Next up, we've got Nintendogs Living Room. This stage is kind of interesting in that we've recently learned a little bit more about how it's going to work, at least what we've inferred from it. Because originally, we always saw the same block formation for the most part. But we now can see that the blocks will actually take many forms. In one, like they're stacked up really high, and then the toys on the side change up, change a lot too. It seems like there's a bunch of different toys. And then, of course, you have the dog running around in the background. So the thing is, though, we still are no closer to an idea of how the stage actually works. Like, we've long theorized that a dog would, like, run through the stage, cause all the blocks to maybe go flying in the air, then, reassemble in different ways. And that could still be the case. Though, as, we point on the analysis, and I think as Derek commented on originally, it does seem to be a bit, these structures seem to be a little bit too precise to fall in that pattern necessarily.
Right.
So maybe it's randomly selected at the start, each time you play the stage, maybe it's a different arrangement. I'm not sure.
That seems likely to me. I hadn't thought about that. It's a very good point. They do seem too precise to be completely random. So it does seem to me that the block formations will be pre-selected from, randomly selected from a number of specific formations, but I don't think that they'll necessarily be changed in real time and literally, anything's possible. So I do agree with you there, Derek, and beyond that, I'm kind of excited for this stage because I think Nintendogs is just cute. I mean, I never really loved the games that much, but I love the Nintendogs Assist Trophy and Brawl, and again here, and it's a cool idea for a stage. Like it definitely stands out to me as one of the more creative 3DS stages we've seen so far. I'm kind of curious to see if the dog itself will be, or a dog himself will be a hazard in terms of if it can damage your characters, or if really it just changes the formation of the stage. And also, if the blocks themselves can be hazards if they're moving. I'm kind of wondering if the blocks themselves can always be weaponized depending on how fast they're moving. Kind of like rolling boxes or crates from Brawl, So it would be interesting to see if the blocks are sent flying, if those can KO you. Same thing with the toys, stuff like that.
The thing I've been really focusing on this ever since we got a few more pictures of it for this stage, just because I'm trying to figure it out, and I love the puzzle element for it, just trying to figure it out, because I've even looked at like which dogs pop up with which arrangement to see if there's a pattern there. Like, oh, okay, if we get this dog, it's going to be this pattern, and if we get this dog, it's going to be this pattern. And no, it does seem to be completely random. Like I've seen each dog with multiple arrangements, so that's definitely not the case. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there. So I think there might be an element of randomness every time, just because we might have the blocks be different setups in the beginning of the stage, but maybe the dogs actually, maybe they don't upset the blocks, but maybe they bring in the toys like the shoe and the burger and all that. So that could be a possibility. I mean, otherwise, I guess the dog's just trying to be distracting by being cute in the background.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I feel like the dogs have to interact with the level in some way. Like, I just feel like it'd be kind of a waste if they don't, and it's entirely possible they won't. I mean, I guess the Metal Gears and the Metal Gear stage they interact directly with it either. It just seems like that's something that they'd want to do, because it would be fun to see the dog, mess around at the level in some way. All right, moving on, we got Pokemon Prism Tower. This is something we learned a lot more about fairly recently too, in that you'll start off at the base of the tower, you'll ride a platform up to the top, and then it seems you'll do some more battles up there too, as well as along the way as well. But it seems like there'll be stops at the bottom and at the top, because there are additional platforms at the top that seem like they'll play a role in the battle. And then there's the fact that along the way you'll be joined by another platform as well at points, at least. So, I don't know, I'll be honest, this stage hasn't quite sold me yet. I mean, I don't think we've seen enough of it for me to say for sure, but our ideas for how it was going to work originally seemed a lot more interesting, where you'd actually be like, hopping from platform to platform to climb up this tower, when we now know you're just riding a single one basically the entire way up.
I think this is a great choice for a Pokemon stage, honestly. I mean, Prism Tower is one of the most iconic locations in X and Y, and it definitely stuck with me when I was playing X and Y, and I think this is a really good choice for a representative location or stage from the newer Pokemon. It might end up being well, actually, no. I mean, it seems like it's going to be fairly basic, but this is another one of the stages where it looks like there will be a lot of spectacle in terms of the time of day changing, and the location itself is a fairly epic one anyway. It's the site of a gym battle in the middle of the game, and I think to me it's more interesting than the obvious Pokemon Stadium 3. I'm glad that Pokemon is getting something a little more dynamic, a little more varied and interesting than just another Pokemon Stadium stage.
It's the time of day stuff that I'm probably most curious about with the stage, because otherwise it does seem just rather basic. Because I'm wondering, like, does the process of starting from the bottom and working way to your top take the entire day? Do you fly around Lumio City that much?
I'm pretty sure, I want to say he confirmed that.
Did he? Okay, because otherwise I'm like, it might take several passes to get to nighttime, because it does seem like a very gradual, like starting out with blue skies and a regular morning, and then it gets darker, so you get some orange in there, and it becomes actual dark, and it's black, it's night out, and then you even have a little bit of dawn in there with the purple skies. So there's a lot of like different, the fact that there is so much involved. So I want, is it a full rotation or not? Which might mean that the whole process of getting to the top takes longer than we initially thought, where you're actually flying around and picking up different stage pieces along the way, a lot more involved.
If we use the Mario 3D Land stage as an example, I think he mentioned that level takes 2 minutes for it to loop, as I recall. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a similar amount, although it could be longer, especially if there are in fact stops at the top of the tower as we expect, and again at the bottom. So who really knows?
Well, I think the Miiverse comment you guys are talking about is where he says, by the time you reach the top, the sun is already setting. So that tells me that however long it takes to get to the top, once you're there, I mean, it has gone through that cycle, and it's like it's not a multiple cycle thing. Like it will happen, once you get to the top, the sun's setting, and then we have nighttime, and it seems to be fixed in that sense. What we don't really know is how nighttime transitions back into daytime and how long that takes.
Well, I'd guess that you fight at the top maybe throughout the night, and then when you're on your way back down, it turns back in the morning again.
Right, that seems likely, yeah.
There is one element here I don't know if we've ever mentioned before, and that's the poles on either side of the actual stage, the actual platform that flies all around.
Right.
At various points, they're lit up in different colors: yellow, green, blue, purple.
Huh.
I wonder if that means it's like if it'll change those colors as you go across all the plazas that circle the Lumio's Tower or the Prism Tower. Because each of those plazas was represented by a different color, and Ver Plaza, I forget some of the others off the top of my head, but that sort of thing. I wonder if they'll signify like a change in the platform in some way. I can't tell from the stage, from the pictures that we have here, but it might add for a little bit more, add a little bit more of a dynamic to the stage than we initially thought.
Huh, that's a good one. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that might be tied in. I'm looking at it right now. And it looks like it just cycled through them in several different situations. So I don't know if it's just for looks or if it actually does tie into something. Interesting thought, though.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's a great point.
Okay, moving on, we got the Punch-Out Boxing Arena. Now, there's really not much to say about this that we haven't already before, but we've known about this arena since the original E3 unveiling. We did recently, I guess we did find out it's going to be on the 3DS as well. But it looks to function just like it does in the Wii U version. So I'm guessing everything's going to be the same, where you can still hop onto the spotlights above, you can use the ropes as to bounce off of, and it looks like it'll have I'm presuming both versions of the stage. But yeah, so I have nothing else to add about this one.
Yeah, I don't think I really do either. I mean, we had the previous discussion when the most recent boxing ring image was revealed. And kind of like what we said there, this stage instantly got a lot more interesting to me when it was found out that we could stand on the lights and stuff like that as well. So before that, it was kind of a really basic, kind of uninteresting stage in my opinion. But now that we know that, it's more interesting. But again, that's kind of, we already touched on that, and I don't really know what else we can get at this point.
Right.
I don't think there really is anything to get. I mean, we're still trying to figure out some stages, but this stage, I think we got a pretty firm grasp on.
Yeah.
Unless he throws in some other crazy stuff where maybe like the arena opens up and the boxing ring goes all over the place or some crazy crap like that. But I think on the whole, I think we have a pretty good idea how this is going to work.
Well, the only other idea I have, and I don't know how much I want to discuss it here versus in our Wii U stage discussion, but I'll mention it now because we're talking about it. The only other thing they could do is, we've talked before, and I've actually even talked about this idea before, but this level is still kind of generic. I mean, the fact that it had a generic version, shows that it's really not that deeply entrenched in a Punch-Out, and to be fair, I don't know how much more they could do with a boxing ring. But that's where my idea comes into play, because now that we know boss characters are a thing, what if, the other opponents from Punch-Out appeared as bosses in this game, or at least one of them, drops in, and maybe you have to battle a Punch-Out boxer, as a boss character.
That'd be really cool. I hadn't thought about that.
It's a good idea. I just wondering, like, who would they pick? Because, I'm still campaigning for King Hippo as an assist trophy. So if he does become an assist trophy, who else would be the best choice? And I guess I could just cycle through them, have Glass Job show up, or Mr. Dream, as if they go from the easiest to the hardest. It definitely would spice up the game a bit.
Well, I think what needs to happen here is that Nintendo needs to pay for the rights to use Mike Tyson again. And have Mike Tyson appear.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that'd be pretty cool. But kind of like what you said, Andre, about it not completely being a Punch-Out stage because there's a generic version. That might not happen only because it doesn't seem that deeply entrenched in the Punch-Out universe.
Right.
But I would like to see that. I think for the Punch-Out version, that would be a great addition.
Yep, I'm totally with you. Well, and that's what I wonder. I think that's maybe the context I mentioned it before, is maybe the generic version, that's not a factor, whereas maybe the Punch-Out version is the gimmick version, where you do have those boss characters.
Maybe the generic version is the Final Destination version of the ring.
Yeah, I mean, that could be, exactly. Alright, next up we got the Super Mario 3D Land stage, and I think this stage looks pretty cool. It's reminiscent of the Mushroomy Kingdom from Brawl, which is another stage I really enjoyed, even though I think a lot of people maybe weren't too big on it. It was a side-scrolling stage. Now this one's interesting because it also is a side-scrolling stage at a couple different points, but it switches up at a couple other points where you're actually riding platforms either into or away from the camera. I think this one's cool. It looks like it's gonna be switching up things a lot especially on a 2-minute cycle. Like, it's gonna be switching up basically every 30 seconds with a totally different type of gameplay. And I just love the whole look of the stage too, being based on 3D Land.
I think this looks like a really fun stage. I actually wasn't a big fan of the Mushroomy Kingdom stages in Brawl, but this one looks significantly more interesting in my opinion, and you've got a lot of different elements from the Mario series here, like the donut blocks here, which that they fall if you stand on them for too long, and
the question blocks.
And it seems like it's just going to be a really fun stage that again changes things up very often, especially like you said with the 2-minute cycle. And it's bright and colorful, and I think it'll be a really fun to look at. And I do like that it's not just straight platforming the whole way through. Like again, it switches it up with riding platforms, and it seems like there almost might be elements of Pokeflows in that sense, but certainly not. I mean, only in one part of the stage. So I'm definitely looking forward to kind of seeing how the stage feels and plays, and I have a pretty strong feeling that it'll be one of the stages playable at E3 next month.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on. It'd be a shame not to play that.
I think you nailed why I have a better feeling about this stage than I ever did with Mushroomy Kingdom, because Mushroomy Kingdom, was kind of cool that you're playing the original Mario Brothers stage again. It just was too dusty and brown and just uninteresting.
Oh, I love that. I thought it was interesting because it was uninteresting.
I know what they were going for with that because it's so old.
Yeah, it's like years of neglect. Yeah.
The first time it's cool, but it loses its punch on repeated playings. And seeing the bright colors and seeing them actually go for more of a platformy section, because I don't know if we ever had a side-scrolling stage that requires you to do some platforming. It's only ever been vertical stages that kind of do that. So that makes it interesting as well for me. And as both you guys said, it just changes things so constantly that I think it'll keep you on your toes, and you might end up fighting the level more than than each other at certain points.
Yeah, that very well could be. It looks like stage hazards will play a big role in this level, especially at the end. The spikes are destroying the platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I could see that being very chaotic.
And this is also another one of the stages that I think will look especially great with the 3D slider on.
Yeah, I mean it's got 3D in the name, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, speaking of interesting stages, I think the Legend of Zelda Gerudo Valley one looks pretty awesome. And that there's also quite a bit going on at points at least. You've got the bridge there, which is like the Bridge of Eldin, and that it can give out at certain points, presumably from being attacked, and almost definitely from being attacked by when the witches show up. The
Komi and Kotake.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Firing their fire and ice attacks, and it looks like that's going to be switching things up a lot, because those not only can presumably take out the bridge, but they can take out the platforms on either side. and as well as just being major hazards in and of themselves. Lighting, it seems the left side of the screen on fire and the right side on, with the ice attack or freezing it over. Yeah, so I just think this stage looks awesome in general, like even without all those hazards. And then when you add in how dynamic it seems, I think it'll be a really interesting course to play on.
I think it looks like a really cool stage. I think Sakurai's kind of fibbing a little because this is really a console stage, but I guess Ocarina of Time 3D, sure, but no, I think it looks really interesting, and yeah, I guess we don't really know yet for sure how the bridge breaks, but I'm almost certain it's got to be from Tomei and Kotake attacking it, and then I imagine that they kind of spray the battlefield with various fire and ice spells. I know we have the one screenshot that shows a lot of icicles, and that's got to be from whichever witch does the ice attacks, and same thing with we have the fire as well. So I think they'll probably be kind of making this a very hazardous stage to play on, but also a really fun one. And it seems like they really do a whole lot. I'm kind of curious to see if they're actually going to transform into Twin Rover at some point and cause even more chaos.
Oh man, if they actually transformed it to Twin Rover, that could be truly chaotic. Just because they light both sides on fire. We've already seen that destroys the platforms in the background. So, you'd be stuck on the bridge, and if the bridge collapses, well, you're sort of out of space at that point.
Yeah. So it seems like one of the most hazardous stages we've seen so far. It seems like there's a lot going on at any given time. There's not a whole lot of safe space to work with.
And even in the when the bridge goes out and you fall down, there's even spikes down there too. Like there really is no escape from hazards in this level, it seems.
Yeah.
There is that sense there is no escape, but I do like that from what we've seen of both of these attacks, whether it's fire or ice, is that it seems to start from the edge of the map and work its way towards the bridge, which gives you a little bit of time to escape.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's much time, but it does seem like you can react to this relatively quickly and get the heck out of there.
Well, there's also the fact that you've got the time, the heads up too, with the fact that the witches appear.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a match that really requires you to pay attention to other things going on, not just beating up the opponents.
Yeah.
Now, the only other thing I wonder, and I think I mentioned it in the analysis, is how does the bridge come back? Now, in Bridge of Eldin, I think it just faded back in. But I'm thinking this could be an awesome opportunity for them to make use of the Carpenters, which you can see their tent right there. So it'd be awesome if the Carpenters from Zelda actually popped into the screen and rebuilt the bridge in front of your very eyes.
That'd be really cool, like in a cartoony way with a lot of dust clouds.
Yeah, right?
They could do that with the platforms too.
Yeah,
Since
exactly.
they get destroyed.
That's a good one. Yeah, it would make so much sense, and it'd be a shame if they don't do that, in fact. Okay, next up we got another Zelda arena, being the Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. And I'm actually really excited for this level. I love the concept of riding the train, the different platforms coming and going, throughout the match. And you've got the other platform that floats overhead. You've got the bomb car that shows up randomly. And then just the fact that it's based on Spirit Tracks, which is a Zelda, I think that's kind of underrated. I actually really enjoyed that game. It just makes me really excited for it, especially if it has the music from that game, which is fantastic when you're riding the train.
Well, it sounds like I'm going to be, copying you word for word, but we actually talked about this recently, and I also think Spirit Tracks is really underrated. And again, the music in that stage is amazing, and this is probably second only to Reset Bomb Forest as the one stage I'm looking forward to playing on more than anything. Because I don't think Spirit Track gets enough love. I think it's great that Sakurai actually even chose Spirit Tracks as a game to reference the Zelda series as a stage, and it just looks fun. We know for sure that the overworld music from Spirit Tracks is really happy and peppy, and that's going to make fighting on this stage a whole lot of fun. And it seems like there's a lot going on the stage in terms of platforms and the way the trains moving. We know that the bomb trains are going to blow up some of the cars, which will make it a little hazardous. It seems like there's a lot of really fun ideas going on the stage. To me, it just seems like a really solid idea conceptually, and I really have nothing bad to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this stage got a pass for me for two reasons. Because like you guys, I'm also a fan of Spirit Tracks. I never minded the train aspect of it. I was like, oh, nice. It's nice to see Zelda actually progressing their technology a bit, which I always thought was fun. But the other reason I got a pass for me is that I've always been a big fan of Big Blue. That's always been one of my favorite stages, just because I love the speed of it. I like, if you fall off, you have that slight chance to get back on, and it always struck me as kind of fun. And see this as sort of a spiritual successor, really, I don't know, got me behind it almost right away. And this has the same sort of thing where if you fall off onto the tracks, you do have that ability to try to catch up. So, no, I think it looks great. I think all the elements they're adding to it make it even though it's similar to Big Blue, I think it's going to have its own own touch to it because of the, as you guys said, the bomb trains, the different layouts with the different cars that attach to you, and that sort of thing. So no, just a really solid stage.
Yeah, you mentioned one thing there with it being like Big Blue and that you can fall off, and then we can see Fox. Like, it looks like he has a split second before he goes off screen, so you can presumably run along the track as well. And I'm wondering if that means that if the train might change speeds, because at one point we see the platform, moving in a different, moving in relation to the train. So I don't know if that's a platform moving by itself or if the train's like picking up speed, causing the platform to fall behind. And I'm wondering, like, it'd be kind of cool maybe the train does change speeds at different points, making the terrain itself, either more or less of a hazard, depending on what speed the train's going at.
I also, looking at the screenshots again, I'm reminded that, of course, the train picks up the Linebeck Trading Company at one point. And I think we can all agree that any stage with Linebeck is better than any stage without Linebeck.
That's perhaps like the main thing this next stage is missing, being Tomodachi Collection. And we actually don't know really anything about this stage. I mean, we've only had one picture yet. And of course, go figure that they'll probably show off, way more pictures as soon as we post this discussion.
Yeah.
But, we just get a picture of a single room here. And so my thought is it might be a course like Luigi's Mansion, where it's like a much bigger house, for instance. And you actually go room to room. You can jump up to like a room above, for instance, or drop to a room below. That's really the only thing I can take away from this.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of that's a really good point. I didn't think about that. It could be very Luigi's Mansion-esque, and I think it's fairly, I don't know. I think it's probably safe to guess that given Tomodachi Life's subject matter, I think we'll probably see some fun things happening with our Miis in the system, and maybe they'll affect the stage, maybe they won't. But I mean, this has to be part of a bigger stage because this is a really small room otherwise,
Right.
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping with this stage, I mean, this is pure conjecture at this point, of course, but that if it is an apartment building, I kind of hope it's not like Luigi's Mansion in that I hope that you don't see the base of it. I want it to be like a skyscraper where you only get to play on like the top, like 3 or 4 floors. So you can maybe like kick somebody out of the apartment and have them fall out that way and maybe catch on to one of the lower floors and work their way back up. I think if they bring it high up and make it sort of like an apartment version of like Saffron City or Fourside where you're up fighting on buildings, I think it could be unique and fun in that way. And so, like, you're up in the clouds and you can't actually see the base.
That'd be pretty cool. Like, doing something maybe more vertically focused, which is something a lot of Smash maps don't really do, unless it's as part of being a broader stage. But yeah, I can't really think of any vertically focused stages besides from, got the terrible one from Brawl, the Donkey Kong one.
Yeah.
Jungle Falls, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, assuming this one's not a scrolling stage, that could be really cool. So that wraps up for all the new stages, but on top of that, there are 3 other ones returning to the game. That we know about. Now, one's Battlefield. I don't think we have anything to say about Battlefield, right?
Nope, it's Battlefield.
It's fun. I like it.
Like the New Super Mario Brothers U-esque spires in the background, the rock spires. I think they look really cool, but beyond that, I mean, it's Battlefield.
Exactly. Now, another stage that also looks pretty cool, I think, is Jungle Japes from Smash Bros. Melee. That was actually one of my probably preferred stages of my game. Where you had the basic platform layout, but then you had the water below, which, it actually was kind of like the Big Blue stage again, where it rushed you off screen if you got caught into it, but you could jump out if you got if you landed in it. And then you had like little clap traps that would come along too. So I'm glad to see the stages back.
This is actually not one of the stages that I prefer to play on, and it's not really something I ever wanted to see back. But it's also because of I have a unique experience with it. One of my friends that I would play this stage with a lot, he would just camp on one of the side platforms, just Game & Watch, and just throw sausages, and just basically just camp and be really obnoxious. And that kind of, to me, is a defining feature of the stage, which has nothing to do with the stage itself. That's just my personal experience with it. But I can't say I'm super excited for it only because of that. But I mean, it's a fun stage otherwise. The clap traps are if they're anything like they were before, they're going to be something to watch out for because I remember their hitbox being pretty big, and I mean they can get you even if it seems like you'd escape them, and then right. you're out of life right there. And it also has Jungle Japes always has good music. It's always fun to see a Donkey Kong stage, and I mean this might not have been my first choice for stages to come back, but they're certainly ones that I like less as well.
It's an okay stage. I mean, I'm kind of like Asher. I have encountered people who camp on like the smaller platforms and just be really obnoxious about what they're doing. And like I had somebody play Pikachu, and you try to get to him, and he'd always do his thunder, and I just hated it. I mean, the stage itself is not bad, just not one of my favorites, which that's all just comes down to personal taste. But I do think it is, one of the more memorable ones. You never really forget Jungle Japes. So in a way, it does make it a prime example of a good one to return.
All right, finally we have Final Destination. Again, I don't know if there's a ton to say on this course or on this level, especially that we haven't already said, just, in association with the other stages. And, I like mixing up every once in a while with this a Final Destination match, especially if I'm playing completely seriously, which isn't that often. So, it's good to see it back, particularly with all the different forms it'll have now. Although I think the only form we actually see of it, actually, is the Gerudo Valley version. We actually have no idea how the actual stage itself will look. Although I'm guessing it'll be based on the Wii U version.
Yeah, I assume it'll be based on the Wii U version, and that version, for what it's worth, looks really cool.
Yeah,
like the background looks really awesome. So I'm not the biggest Final Destination fan in terms because I've had to play with so many people who only ever want to play on Final Destination. So I mean, I'm glad it's back, of course, and it'll always be back, and I'll play on it. But I just when you play with people who only want to play on FD, it gets really obnoxious. But
yep.
Of course, I'm happy to see it back, and the default background for it looks super epic this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, be very curious to see if it's maybe going to be a throwback to the Melee where it's less dynamic, or maybe they will go all out and really use the 3D in some way or something like that. But it's Final Destination. It's your basic of the basics, and I enjoy a Final Destination match on occasion, but it's not my absolute favorite just because of the whole for glory idea behind it. So
yeah,
just not my thing.
Yep, I can see that. That's fair enough. Alright, well I think that wraps up our Smash Bros. 3DS Stages discussion, so thanks guys for watching. If you like this discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, which you can find links to in the description below. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.